Welcome to Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debbie Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Balanced Life, Conversations Connecting to a Healthier You. I'm your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle, and I thank you for joining me today. I have a great topic to talk about, and as you can tell, I was in the studio on my last show a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not in the studio today. My guest preferred to do Zoom, so it's easier. It works just fine, and we're really happy. But that doesn't keep us from having you become part of this conversation. So to get involved with us today, you could call in at any time to make a comment or ask a question. So that number here is 323-524-2599. So you can call anytime and we'll pick up and we'll get you involved in the conversation. You can also go to Balanced Life by Debbie, otherwise known as Fit by Design, on my Facebook page, where we're actually streaming the show live as well. And you can make a comment, ask a question. I check that after the show and I do respond or have my guest respond. And you can do that on my Instagram page, Balanced Life by Debbie, as well. So, having said all that, I want to introduce to you a new, not so much a challenge, but an actual contest that I'm having. And it's to win free customized training and health coaching sessions with me on Zoom. And this is a value of over $2,000 if you win this contest. So all you have to do to enter is go to my YouTube channel, which is Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle /YouTube. And when you get there, just hit subscribe. And once you do that, you can email me at debboyle, DEBBOYLE @mac.com. And if you're watching, it's up on the screen right now, your first and last name, and that enters you immediately. And then live on my August 25th show, which is a Tuesday, I'm going to be announcing the winner of that contest. So tell your friends, it's actually a great package. I do the sessions on Zoom and they're very valuable, I must admit. And so I'm going to help you with anything that you have physically with fit personal training or health coaching. So enter that contest. So I'd like to welcome you to my show today. I have a great guest and I'm going to introduce her to you right now. Adey Jones is a 3 principles practitioner, a mentor, speaker, and host of Insightful Conversations with Adey Jones, a weekly live streaming YouTube and podcast series featuring some of the most impactful voices in the 3 principles community. It airs live every week right here at ubngo.com at 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's the show right before mine. Thanks to Dell's unconventional childhood, growing up in the UK, her former career in Hollywood, and her personal challenges, including a divorce and raising children as a single parent, Dell's practice is informed both by the empathy gained from real-life experience and her deeper studies of spirituality and human psychology. Dell's specialty is helping people find the way out of codependency and narcissistic abuse through the understanding of the 3 principles. Today, we're going to talk all about how to find your way out by discussing Dell's relatable approach to coaching and her commitment to creating a safe space to explore the inside-out understanding. So will you please welcome my friend, my former co-host of Dell and Debbie's Mind, Body, and Soul, Adey Jones. Hi, Dell.
Debbie, oh my God, that brought back so many memories.
Listening to me introduce.
Yeah, oh, it's lovely. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today, and Yeah,
Miss you. I miss you. I miss you.
oh, it's been quite an adventure for the last year and a half doing our own shows. So
It has. It has. It's been a different experience. I must say, you do your show weekly, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. I do my show twice a month, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. And your show is 25 minutes. My show is 50 minutes. So we kind of changed our format around a little bit. We explored with what worked for us within the realm of what our specialties are. And you're doing fabulously. You've gained a real following, and you've created, having this focus aside from what we were doing together. We were kind of spread out, and now you've zeroed in, and I'm so impressed, which is what I was talking about with you before the show. And you've got all kinds of things coming up that we're going to talk about today, because you really are so passionate and helpful with what you're doing for people right now. But we're going to pretend that nobody knows either of us, and they don't know our background. And we're going to be talking about codependency and narcissistic abuse today, and the way out of that, because it is a specialty for you. But before that, I want to hear a little bit about your background and what got you, why is it that this has become a specialty for you? What is it that came about that graduated you to this?
well, it's thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yay.
And yeah, it's been, well, they say that you're an expert either because you studied something and you got qualifications or certifications in something, or because you lived it. So my situation is, I'm definitely not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I lived narcissism and narcissistic abuse, and I certainly spent many, many years of my life being a codependent. So it's a subject that I know inside and out. And just very briefly, I grew up in a rather unusual circumstances, and I took that to mean something about myself, and I viewed myself in a certain way. So I'll give you a little background. I mean, I think everybody's so bored of hearing about my story.
No, but we're gonna assume, I do have a new and different audience right now, and some of the same audience that we had together. So do start from the beginning, because like you said, your story is very potent to how you're helping people now. So it's really of use.
So basically, I was the product of an affair that my mother had with my father. It was an 8-year relationship. They had 3 children together. And I was illegitimate. And I found out what that word meant when I got to the local primary school, and everybody in the village knew.
How old were you at that point?
5 years old. But prior to that, I had never met my father. And even after that, I never met my father. He would come late at night, and we were living in our little cottage at the time. My mother had to raise us and provide money for us. So she converted our cottage into, first of all, a bed and breakfast. And we slept in little trailers or little caravans in the backyard. And then when I was about 5 years old, she converted it into a home for mentally handicapped and mentally ill people.
Wow, so double whammy right there. I mean, doing a good deed, in retrospect, but also putting her kids in a situation that makes it hard to navigate growing up.
Exactly. I mean, if you ever saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that's what our house was like.
And that would have been tough.
Beautiful people, but still for a young child, very scary and unpredictable. And so anyway, I grew up, and my mum, God bless her, she did the best she could. When I was about 9 years old, we rented a big mansion because she could only, take care of so many people in our small cottage. So we then moved into this rambling, great big mansion, and she had about 50 residents move in with us. So you can imagine 50 mentally handicapped and mentally ill people are very childlike. And then you've got 7 children. So it's like raising 57 kids. So she was overwhelmed.
Insane.
Exactly. She was overwhelmed, to say the least. And, as I said, doing the best she could. But we were I'll talk about myself. I was falling through the cracks a little bit. I was very hurt. I would pass my father going to school when I was little, and he wouldn't even look at us. And so I started to believe there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough. Otherwise, he'd want to sort of claim me as his daughter and acknowledge.
How did you know who he was? Were there pictures? Did somebody point him out to you, or?
Someone would point him out when she first. I think when we first started school, or when I first started school, she would say, "That's the house your father lives in." You know, he was married and had his own children, and so I knew the house he lived in. And no, there was no photographs or anything like that. And then I think one day he was sort of walking out of his house, and so I knew he looked like that. And then pretty much, I think for the next 4 years of my life, I was stalking him. You know, well, the 5-year-old on the way to school.
That had to be horrible for you to see him. I can't imagine how gut-wrenching that must have been for you to see him for the first time in person like that and from a distance.
I think I was actually sort of like glad I got to see him, because he'd been this mystery man that I never got to meet or see. I'd hear about him. My mother would say, "Oh, you know, your father loves you, he just can't be with you." And you know, my little mind, it was not making sense, because I thought, well, if you love somebody, you want to see them or spend time with them. And I'd say, well, why doesn't he come earlier when we're awake and come and see us? And, you know, she was, and again, innocently, I think what she was trying to have us feel loved by him. But what it was I was getting a message that basically men that love you don't pay any attention to you and aren't around.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so you were learning what a relationship with a man is like. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And so as I grew older, unless I was feeling in longing, I didn't feel in love. He had to be unavailable. and then I was like, oh my God, I yearn for him, so it must be love. So it's a mixed message I got there. But pretty much there was some abuse too. I was very needy as a young child, needy for male attention, and that unfortunately brings with it some unwanted attention from some not so nice people.
Right. Which was abuse, and that aggravates and messes things up with everything about growing up that you can.
Your self-esteem, you feel damaged, you feel broken, you feel worthless. And so pretty much by the time I was 19, I was, you know, not functioning that well. I felt like I didn't even actually want to be on the planet. I fortunately came to the States when I was 21 and discovered the Bodhi tree and all these different spiritual paths and workshops. My first workshop was healing the shame that binds, because I knew I was full of shame. I felt
Your fault.
Yeah, I felt it was my fault, but I also felt that just my existence had caused this nice family pain, and that's the message we got from the villagers. So I was thought I should never have been born, and so there was a lot of codependent issues. And the other thing, I was very needless and wantless around my mother, because she was so busy.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't cope with, you know, one needy child. So I was, just to be able to be around her, I just was sort of, you know, stuffed everything down and was needless and wantless just to even get attention from her, quite honestly. And that's
so difficult, so awful. And I'm sorry, I really am, that you had to go through that. But what's really miraculous about you is you did see there was a better way. There was a way out to figure out why you were feeling these feelings of shame and needlessness, and that you didn't deserve things, and and not everybody does that. So the big round of applause to you for getting it together to go to that road. And you took a road. It was a long road. You took that road,
very
but
long road.
With some bumps.
Well, yeah, and I mean, as I say, from the age of 21 to 55, I was on a spiritual path for sure, doing lots of workshops and things like that. And then when I was about 30, I went into therapy, because I was just like, not functioning very well in my 20s either. And so overall, I did yeah, like, I'll do the math here, like at least 25, 26 years of therapy, and all of these workshops, and all, spiritual psychology, masters in spiritual psychology, so many different things, certifications in all these different coaching programs.
Yeah.
But I understood codependency inside and out. I knew where my thinking had originated. I could track that back, my circumstances I was born into. But I still, as much as I knew it and I could spot a narcissist in my life, I couldn't get out of that behavior, and I couldn't get out of being attracted to narcissistic personality types. And it was when I came across the principles, when I say, like, I came across them first in 2009. I read a book and it was life-changing. It was just as I was going through a divorce, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But in 2015, I was doing a coaching program at USM, and Steve Chandler was one of our teachers, and he didn't call it the three principles, but he was talking about, this new paradigm in psychology. And I was like, I know this stuff. I read about this in 2009. And then in 2016 and probably beginning of 2017 was when I really, me, I just became immersed in it.
Well, I was with you. We had a show at that time, and I saw how you segued into really getting involved with three principal practitioners, other ways that you could, you were doing workshops, you were going away. You were going away for long periods of time.
Exactly.
We were pre-taping shows, I remember, and we just got in, and you were getting into it, which was great because it kind of helped me along the way, your knowledge as well. But going back a little bit, I wanted to ask you sort of, what is the definition, so somebody can either recognize it for themselves or for somebody else, of codependency and narcissistic abuse? I know they kind of go hand in hand, but what are their definitions?
Okay, well, codependent people are usually, what the phrase, Kate, first, the term codependent actually first came about when they started noticing the spouses of people that were chemically dependent, or like drugs or alcohol. And it was the spouse of the addict. So in essence, what it's pointing to is that you are addicted to the other person. And what they later saw that isn't just necessarily a part of it. If you grew up in a traumatic household, any type of intermittent reinforcement, if one of your parents was narcissistic, you can develop codependency and narcissism, actually, either way. So classically, codependents have a very low self-esteem. They I'll go the codependent first. So very low self-esteem. They fear abandonment. So they will do anything to secure attachment. As I was saying, I became needless and wantless to avoid abandonment by my mother. We become people pleasers. We put other people's needs ahead of our own. And again, it's for the fear of abandonment, or, the same thing with being a people pleaser. We think that love is conditional. So we do and do and do for the other person, as opposed to just being, because again, we were raised in an environment where you weren't really sort of seen, heard, and acknowledged for who you were. It was what you could give to the adult.
Right, what you brought to them, yeah.
We have very weak boundaries, again, because the fear of abandonment. You can have a strong boundary, and if your partner sort of says, I'm not going to adhere to that boundary, I'm going to leave, you start, the boundaries start sort of, become very fluid and not, you don't really stand up and say, what, it's better that I'm alone than I'm abused, or something like that. So you can have, a lot of us said, weak boundaries. You feel a lot of shame because deep down inside, you know that you're negating your own needs and wants, and you're also selling yourself short. Codependent people tend to accept breadcrumbs in a relationship. They just
take anything they can get that would help them feel something about themselves that isn't negative. Yeah.
I tend to I know for myself, I wasn't attracted to healthy men when I was younger. I felt that I had so much pain in me that unless somebody else had been through trauma or or were dysfunctional. I just felt that we wouldn't be a match. So I deliberately, and I shouldn't say that, and any ex-boyfriends out there that are listening, you weren't all bad by any means. I had some wonderful men in my life, but unfortunately I wasn't interested in the wonderful men. I wanted to recreate my childhood and win over the affection of an unavailable man.
But that was familiar, so you can't be blamed for it at all. Yeah.
100%. And that's the other thing. Usually you grow up in drama, and anything less than drama makes you feel like you're dying. So you tend to seek out dramatic relationships.
I would also think that you would feel like you deserve it. So you would go for the drama in life, because that's what you know, and that's having this low self-esteem. That's probably, I deserve it, so I can't be happy. No, exactly. So why go for that direction?
Yeah. Oh, again, I would even say more than, you definitely accept less. You think this is as good as it gets, for sure. But that addiction to drama is a very, people will constantly keep going back into those very painful relationships. And they might leave one, but they'll find another, somebody to share that pain with, because they feel alive. It's just their normal. It's
exactly.
Haven't experienced anything different.
And it can be so debilitating. It can be debilitating to your relationships with your family, your friends, and to, I would think, your overall health. You're just chipping away at your well-being.
Absolutely. If you are, a lot of people, and it manifests physically, like mental pain can show up physically. A lot of
big time.
Yeah, a lot of the immune disorders are totally directly related to the stress and the cortisol and all the things that are rushing through your body when you're.
This is true.
That. But it can also show up in just, because the narcissists in your life are not just your partners. It can be a parent, it can be a boss, it can be a co-worker, a friend, and even an adult child. And that type of constant message that you're not good enough, you show up in life in a very different way. If you think, as you said, if there's low self-esteem or I don't deserve better, you don't advocate for yourself at all.
So speaking of the narcissists that show up, what is the definition of a narcissist? Because I also think this is going to help people go, whoa, yes, exactly. I know that person, I'm married to that person, or that's my friend, or, what is the actual definition, and how do we recognize?
It's on a continuum. I mean, it's like, from full-blown narcissism to just some narcissistic tendencies. It's really essential that we have some level of narcissism in us, some level of entitlement. What we're talking about, and I also want to preface any of this, when I talk about codependency or narcissism from the perspective of the three principles, we don't diagnose people, we don't label people. It's just, we're pointing to a set of behaviors that if you don't see beyond, you will keep finding yourself in that behavior. So narcissists, the complete opposite. So you've got the codependent over here and the narcissist. And the codependent is like low self-esteem, low level of self-entitlement and everything like that. And on the other end, you're like, whoa, up here, high levels of entitlement. They view themselves as special, superior to other people. There's different types of narcissists. The three main ones are the covert, the overt, and the malignant. Some narcissists are very flashy. It's all about how they look, the cars they drive, the houses they own, holidays they go on. Or there's the sort of the intellectual superiority as well. Like, I'm brighter than anybody else. I'm clever, and everybody else is an idiot. And then there's the ones that are just, really, really love to torture people. And but basically, so narcissists, as I say, high levels of entitlement, selfish. It's all about them. They want all the attention.
Now, where do we see that right now in our country? You're just giving the definition of. I don't really bring in politics on my show, but boy, are you giving a great definition of what's going on now in leadership in this country, boy.
Exactly. It's a lot of not taking responsibility, blaming everybody else, needing to be the only one on the stage. We live in a narcissistic culture. I mean, we have it in, you know, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, all that, you know, all the
entitlement. Yeah,
exactly. And people are just there to serve them. I mean, they're objects to serve. That level of entitlement of, you know, I don't care if I'm taking advantage of you or whatever. So yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, a monster, just a monster on his entitlement and his
and his cohort too.
Yeah, he had help, but even she was sort of under his guise, his wing of narcissism, and wanted to please him. Yeah. She set it all up, you know. It was like,
well, I think to have narcissists can hook up together too,
and work together to create this world where it's all rotates around them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, to have the classic thing. I mean, some people are codependent often say things like, "Oh God, am I a narcissist?" The simple fact you're questioning yourself shows you're not a narcissist. Narcissists don't self-reflect. They don't have the ability to go, "Oh, could I be one?"
Good to know, because because somebody right now is going down the laundry list for themselves, but they're self-reflective.
Moments when we're selfish. We all have moments when we're self-involved and it's all about us. I mean, without a doubt, that's just part of the human condition. But what happens, you know, and I don't want to sort of diagnose people on in the media or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the lack of empathy is the big difference. A narcissist cannot put themselves in another person's shoes. Mm-hmm. They don't feel what they're feeling. The way their brains work is different. They don't respond, you know, emotionally. People are there to serve them. They are objects, interchangeable objects. Oh, you've served me and you're no worth anymore, then, you know, the discard. It's like, move over, next one coming.
Again, what are we talking? I mean, you're doing the perfect example. Yeah, and so, you know, in a way, he's kind of done justice to the definition of narcissism for our country. Yeah. Because if you were ever wondering what a narcissist is, at this level, we've got it at the highest ranking level in our government. So, you know, just look at that behavior and there you know.
Well, and just like it said, it can show up differently in different people, but the bullying, the intimidating, the need to dominate, the need to win at all costs, the need to never, ever look at their frailties is massive. That's why narcissists are more often than not cheat, because they need the constant new narcissistic supply. They want the adoration. They can't tolerate being, you know, that their mask is so impenetrable. If they think anybody's going to stick around long enough to really see what's behind that mask, which is a very scared, very frightened child that's within. That's why, you know, they say a narcissist is really like a 3-year-old. They have, you know, impulse control.
Having tantrums.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They can't control their impulses. They deny, like, no, I didn't put my hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
So
and they get abusive, correct? I mean, not, you know, not in every case, like you said, it manifests itself differently in different people, but they can be abusive, physically abusive, because again, it's their way of not wanting to face that they were wrong or that they didn't know something. So they're going to be abusive to the person who's codependent on them.
Totally. And the other thing is just to, you know, I see in the 3 principles, we often say things like that our experience of life, we feel it via our thinking. We have, you know, normally people tend to feel that they feel circumstances or they feel other people. You made me feel this way. That circumstance made me feel this way.
You put it on others.
We know that our feelings are coming about from our thinking about the other person or about our life circumstances. But when I first came to the principles, I heard, oh, there's no diagnosis. And because I used to coach in the, you know, codependency and narcissistic arena. And I thought, oh, I can't do that anymore because, you know, we don't talk about, but what I
So Del, can we go back and just give the definition of the 3 principles for my audience who may have not been following you or seeing your show, what is the actual definition of the three principles? And we'll bring it around to how it worked for you to help with not only for yourself, but your clients who have codependency from narcissistic abuse.
I'm going to do that. I just want to finish off this one thought for a second, though, because what happened was I started to see in the three principles community, people getting very confused. And they started saying, but, you know, if it's just my thinking, I should be able to tolerate anything. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. If somebody came to you with a black eye or a broken arm and said, I'm being physically abused, nobody would turn around and say, it's, you know, it's your thinking that's causing you the suffering.
Okay.
What was happening was people in the 3P community, or people were coming in and learning a little bit about the principles, which I'll go through in a minute. And they were getting confused. So it was such an important area. And since I've, you know, started talking about it more, so many people are being helped by it, because it certainly helped me get out of the behavior and the thinking. So go back now to the three principles. So what the three principles points to is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And what happens is, as I said before, we are like, when your mum used to, well, my mum used to say to me when I was little, you're driving me crazy and things like that.
No, mine did too. Well, there were 4 of us. So, and my mom was a narcissist.
Yeah.
So, and she was addicted to prescription drugs and alcohol, as you know. And, you know, I had 2 sets of family, 2 older kids, 2 younger kids. And so there was that abuse, especially for us older ones, who had to put up with my mother's behavior and in turn deal with her whole thing was about herself, her whole existence. She was an only child from a wealthy family, had a traumatic turn in her childhood when she found out her mother wasn't really her mother. And then everything went south. She gets married, she has these kids, but it's all about her, right? So everything becomes about her. And yet she has 4 children. And her and my dad, because of my mother's problems and narcissism, they parted. And when my younger brother and sister were very young, and when I was 12, my dad no longer lived in the house, they were divorced. And watching that behavior, or living within that behavior, you know, you kind of just felt like everything that we did, similar to you, rotated around my mother and what her needs were. And we were the mothers taking care of her, you know, even my younger brother and sister were taking care of her, because that was survival. It was the only way to survive. It was the only thing we knew at that time. So,
I mean, and that's why, you know, we developed codependent behaviors. It's because we were taught at a very early age that, you know, we became parentified and we were parents to our parents to some degree or another. So
exactly.
For a second. So yes, so basically what it teaches us is that, as I mentioned earlier, that, you know, we don't feel other people, we don't feel circumstances, we feel it via our thinking. And each one of us, I'm going to use my little snow globe here because this.
Oh yeah, I love this example. This is good because it makes
this is
a visual.
Yeah. So can you see that in the center of that snow globe, there's a Buddha. So that is who we are, our essence. We are this spiritual being having a human experience. So the vast majority of us is spiritual. And at that level, we all come on the planet the same. Nobody is more spiritual than another or has access to that. We call it the intelligence behind life, God, spirit, life force, whatever you want to name it. But that's what we're talking about. Sydney Banks, who was the first man to sort of have this epiphany or awareness or whatever you want to call it, saw that the vast majority of us is, like he said, it was 96% of us is this spiritual energy. And only 4% is the expression of that spiritual energy, which is our human form. And of course, in our human form, we all look a little different, you know, tall, short, fat, thin, blue-eyed, brown-eyed, whatever. We look different there. But we are all created equal on that spiritual level. Now, we all come with an inner GPS in us. We call it the little spiritual wisdom that's within all of us. Some people call it common sense. Some people call it intuition or inner guidance or a gut feeling, whatever it is. That is the intelligence behind life, informing us every day about sort of, it's taking care of us. It's directing us in the right direction that is beneficial to us. But what happens is human beings, here's my little snow globe again, have anywhere from 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day. And that, when that happens, it is like all that.
Yeah, we're blowing up. Yeah, it's
when we're caught up in our thinking, we can't see who we really are at our essence. And
such a great example of, a visual.
Yeah, because we're up in our heads and we truly believe that we are just this. When I get caught up in my thinking, like I do, like everybody does, it's all about, oh my God, what should Dell be doing right now? How's Dell going to figure this out? It's like I'm sounding like somebody talking about themselves in the third person there. But it's me. How do I do this? What do I do? And we forget. It's like, no, somebody's got our back. Somebody is living us. Somebody is beating our heart when we're asleep. Somebody is making our lungs, this energy is making our lungs breathe in and out. We really get into this illusion that we are in control of it all. So
that our thoughts are the end all. What we think is that's it, and there's nothing else guiding us.
Yeah.
But and if they're negative thoughts, look where you go.
And also, we think that if we call it insecure thinking. If we have a lot of insecure thoughts, I'll take myself, for example, like I'm not good enough. If I was pretty enough, skinny enough, clever enough, whatever my father would want me. Now, those thoughts followed me around in my life. And I would think again and again and again. And I would think, oh my God, they're just telling me something about me. I didn't realize that lots of people have those thoughts. It's not just mine. They're not indicating who I am. In fact, those thoughts don't even know who I am, because that's just the ego. That's just the fearful, stuff that humans do. It's forgotten that at my essence, I am magnificent. And
those thoughts can paralyze you in your tracks, in your career, in your education, in your personal relationships with your family, friends, and a significant other. Those thoughts followed me, because of the way I grew up. Those kind of thoughts of not being enough. First I had a weight problem. I grew up, as you know, in a processed house, but rather than kind of have my own version of things for a very long time, I just thought, I don't deserve better. I don't deserve to look better, feel better, be better. But something was taking over that said, you can go beyond this. And as a result, the only child of 4 with a college education, the only person who went on with a full-time career, and that I was successful at, that got married with a family, which was successful at for 26 years. But it took a while for me to understand. Ideally, when somebody told me when I was auditioning as an actress that you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too this, you're too that, I believed them. Mm-hmm. And I took that with me, and it just stayed. It would stay, and it would play itself out in other ways that made me feel like I wasn't enough. And to this day, I can still hear directors and casting directors, and the things they say are keep rearing their heads in different aspects of my life. And being in the dating game now, approaching mid-60s, and being in the dating game, those voices are coming back. So I hear you so loud and clear how it can just take over our lives.
It does. But what we do in the principles, what we point to is that those thoughts are not personal to us. And a lot of people want to stop those thoughts. But what we say, look at my little surrender painting behind me.
Yeah, it's perfectly placed.
Yeah, it's not about changing those thoughts or the quality of that thinking. What happens is we change our relationship to it. I keep doing this because my thinking, my busyness goes on here, and my wisdom is down in my gut. Your wisdom was speaking through you, saying, Debbie, there's something more for you. So that's always there. But what happens is when we get too much into here, we can't hear the wisdom. So what I was going to say is, so what happens is we end up not taking our thoughts so seriously. They're still going to be there. It's like, so now if I get an insecure thought, I mean, they certainly are far less than they used to be because I've stopped paying attention to them. I don't believe them anymore. I have a different relationship with them. Now when they come in, I'm more of like, sort of like, really? You're back again? Like, you're no help. You don't. You
can chase them away. I love your analogy about the nosy neighbor knocking on your door.
Exactly. It's like a you live in a house, you've got a row of terrace houses, you've got the neighbor, you can't control what's going on in the street. People are going to go up and down that street. So the same thing with the thoughts. You can't control the thoughts that come in your head. Now, if a neighbor comes by and knocks on your door, you have a choice as to whether you open the door and say, oh, you want to come in? Do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a slice of cake? So what I'm saying is, or you can ignore it. You don't pay attention to it. You don't run out into the street and say, don't you go walking past my house. You're not allowed near my house, like you would with the thinking. So it's the same thing. You're like, it's happening. I'm just not going to look in that direction. Just not going to pay it attention. I'm not going to get in there and try and control it. Because when you wrestle with it and try and control it, you make it sticks around a lot longer.
Worse on yourself, right?
It's like going out and having a fight with a neighbor in the street. Instead of just thinking, she'll get bored, she'll move on in a minute. Our thoughts move on all the time. And that was the other thing I wanted to point out. What the principles tells us, we have innate intelligence, innate wisdom, and innate well-being inside of us. Just as our physical bodies, if we get a scratch, heals itself, so does our psyche. So we don't go in there and mess around with things and pick at it. We just it's going to move on. We're always going to bounce back up. We do. That's our natural buoyancy. Even if we're angry or upset, we know it moves on. I mean, we can be in the grips of being upset and angry one day, and the next day it's a little less, and the next day, and then all of a sudden it's like, what was I angry about? It's moved on. We always bounce back to what we call that natural resiliency that's within all of us.
So how does it play out? We're down to the last 5. So I want to make sure that we talk about how you work with clients and your workshop coming up on this exact subject, and how you work with clients to apply the 3 principles, the way you did for yourself, for them. How does that work?
I'll tell you what I saw for myself. I saw that I wasn't broken and damaged. I saw that the vast majority of me was equal to everybody else. I didn't know that before. I also saw that we all live in these separate thought-created little bubbles, all of us. So if somebody, say, cheated on me or said something awful to me or whatever, I don't take that personally anymore. I really don't. It's like, oh, they're just behaving or taking action on a thought that they're having in the moment. That's what they're doing. It has no bearing on me. So that helped me not, get untangled of feeling, oh my God, they did that because I'm not good enough, or, I wasn't enough, or whatever. It's like, no, they had some really weird thinking that they thought they were entitled to do that. So that helped.
That had to be so freeing for you.
So freeing. And then the other one, exactly as I said, I don't take these insecure thoughts anymore. I am so out there now. Life to me is a playground to have fun in. Even
in this environment, because we're in a really, unique situation for the last 4.5, 5 months. And, this is where I could see the principles coming in really handy.
It is, exactly, because the reality is we nothing's for sure. We never know. It's an illusion that we think we've got all the control we think we have.
The answers, we don't. We never know. We never know what's next.
Exactly, and to trust that wisdom within us will guide us, and we will know what to do next. The other thing, there was something else I wanted to just mention about what I saw, which freed me completely, was, well, definitely the separate realities, definitely knowing that I was never broken or harmed. That's the other thing. If you have gone through any sort of abuse, sexual abuse or anything, knowing that the essence of you, who you are at your essence, that pure love, pure joy, pure peace, that could never be broken, can't be touched. Things do happen in the physical world, but it's minuscule compared to who we are at our essence. So
very valuable to understand that and know that about yourself.
Exactly. And to also not feel a victim of people in your life, to know that, no, I am feeling my thinking. I can view somebody as really, really terrible and bad, or you could just go, you know what, I don't understand them, but I'm going to go over here. I don't
go on with my life.
I don't.
What about, I mean, the blame game comes into play a lot too, where we blame others for our misfortunes or our inability to move forward in some area of our lives. Like for me, I could easily just go back and blame my mom's narcissism, you know?
What we do is, this is the huge one, which I love. And it's not even about forgiveness. When you see that everybody is doing the best they can with their consciousness, a level of consciousness in that moment, it really is. It's like there's nothing to even forgive. They were doing the best they could in that moment. The way that they were seeing the world was the way they saw it, and they responded in kind to it. You don't know what was going on in your mother's mind. People don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to be a really evil, horrible person today and mess up my kids.
That's true.
They're overwhelmed. They've got all this, whatever's going on in their mind, unresolved trauma or whatever it is. Most people really do. And you're a mother and I'm a mother. And we know that, I can certainly look back and go, God, really? Oh, God, I could have done it better. We do the best.
We do the best we can. Yeah.
And when we forgive ourselves for just being human, because, to be human is to err. That's just it. We have human frailties. And when we're kind and generous with ourselves, we're going to be kind and generous with other people too.
I love that.
One
I love it.
To understand is, you don't have to judge and make somebody bad to assess the situation and say, this isn't working for me. I deserve better. I want to leave this situation. And when you know that resilience that's inside of you is inside of everybody, that person is not dependent on you. They've got their own wisdom, their own guidance, their own resilience. They can take care of themselves. So you don't have to rescue anybody. That's a massive one as well.
Wow, that is big. And you're doing these workshops now, and you've got one coming up. Will you shed some light on that? Talk about what it is and when it is and how people can reach you to sign up.
Right. I've got two. The first one is coming up. It's a 6-week program. It starts in about 2.5 weeks, August 15th. Oh, no, it's actually 3.5, well, whatever, 2.5 weeks, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a 6-week program where I take you from, I give you a foundation in the principles, then I teach you about codependency, narcissistic abuse, the signs are in a narcissistic relationship. If you choose to stay, how best to stay in that relationship.
Oh, good. Interesting.
Realistically. And if you choose to leave, how to leave with the least amount of pain and aggravation to yourself. And then the 6th week is how to create healthy, happy relationships. So it's a really good sort of from A
full
to
circle
B on how to get out of this debilitating condition. And then the other one I do is a 12-week, it's an 8-week program this time with another practitioner and myself, Andrea Lee, and we'll be doing that later in the summer. And it's a program, a women's mastermind, women's well-being mastermind that we do, which is just all principles based. That's not necessarily to do with narcissism or codependency. So 2 different programs. And if you go to the website, adeyjones.com, you can see them there. And call me. You can have a complimentary discovery call with me and see.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and you work individually with people too, if they don't want to do workshops or the group. Yeah.
Yeah, I do lots of individual work. So.
And I must say that Del, she does these, oh, I just lost my train of thought, but these are very reasonable. It's a great way to get sort of the master at works knowledge to help you at a very reasonable price to do these workshops. So I'm just saying, so I would check out adeyjones.com.
Yeah.
And it's just got a great website. Really, we were just talking about it before the show. I'm so impressed.
Yeah. And
finally, Del, like, go ahead.
It's all virtual right now. So when we say they're virtual programs, not in person for right now. Right?
Yeah, we're a little bit strapped in that respect, but it's working. We're all finding new ways to keep things moving and keep things going and helping people. You know how it goes for me. I think you still do the same thing on your show, but you have to leave us with final thoughts or words of wisdom.
Wow, yeah, that's an old one. That's we don't do that on my show.
Oh, I do. So there you go.
Oh God, life is to be enjoyed and play in it, and it's so much fun when you don't take yourself so seriously. I mean, I used to take myself so seriously, and now it's just like, I just have this zest for life at 61 that I've never had before, because I just play at everything. And that, as I said, that inner resilience and guidance is going to take care of me. Doesn't matter how many times I fall flat on my face, I just get up, laugh, and brush off and go and have fun again. Think about what kids are like in playgrounds. They don't sit and they don't go, oh God, did I make a mistake? They just get back up and get back out there. And yeah, it's a beautiful life.
It's great. It's beautiful. Yeah, no inhibitions. Yeah. Kids, we teach them how to have inhibitions. That's what they learn from observing and what that they learn in our homes. And, you know, if we could always just be a kid, to be a kid again with that mindset. I love it. I love that you're leaving us with that. This is great. I want to thank you. I miss you terribly. We run into each other when we were at the studio and stuff, but we're not having those moments anymore. So I don't get to see you, and I do miss you. And I respect and love what you're doing for others. So please reach out to Del. And I want to remind you, my audience, that I have a contest going. And to enter, all you need to do is go to my YouTube channel, which is Balance Life by Debbie /YouTube. And just go there and subscribe. Email me. My email address is right there. Just click on it. It's debboyle@mac.com. And let me know your first and last name so I can enter you to win live here on my show on August 28th, okay? Because that is a $2,000 worth of sessions, both personal training and health coaching, just customized to you with me. So I'd love for you to join in this contest. And I want to thank you again, Del, for being here today. And I want to tell you to keep going out and finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you again, Del, for joining me. Bye now.